Hi, it's Katie. So we're going to be making some herringbone earrings today. So these are my herringbone earrings. I've made them with beautiful rose quartz. You can see that it gives you this amazing kind of fishbone, herringbone design, the way that the wire's wrapped around our base wire. And we'll also be making the ear wire, which is part of the design, so it's integral, it continues straight from the design as well, and the little charm that goes on the bottom. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're going to need. So to make one earring, we'll need one size 8 and 2 size 6s. Obviously, to make a pair, we'll need double that. So, and we're also going to be using some 0.4mm wire, that's for our wrapping, and some 0.8mm wire, and that's going to be our base wire. So this is going to be your structural, and this one's going to be your wrapping. We'll be using some flush cutters, some chain nose or flat nose pliers which are narrow, also some round nose pliers and some baling pliers. Now if you don't have baling pliers, what we'll need these for is kind of this thick, this chunkier one here. So if you've got something like a chunky-ish pen, that will work perfectly fine. So never be afraid to look around your house and see what mandrels you've got that are actually there waiting for you to use. So we're going to get straight on to making. So I'm just going to move a few things out of the way. And we're going to start off with taking a piece of our 0.8 wire. Now just make sure that whatever bead you're using will fit onto your 0.8 wire. Make sure the drill hole is sufficient for your 0.8. So, and we're also going to be using about 30 centimetres of your 0.4 weaving wire. So we're going to start off by popping some anchor wraps on. So we're just going to pop a couple of anchor wraps in the middle. So 1, 2 wraps, nice and tight, close together, and knit them in with your fingernails, and then you can just grab your snips and snip off that tail. Now normally with any sort of weaving you leave that tail on, you leave it on so that you've got that to hold on to and to work with, but we don't need that on this herringbone design. So whichever side you chopped off your tail on, that is the side that you're going to add your bead onto. So we're just going to add our bead onto this side because my tail was on this side, and I've got my wire coming, what I want it to do is come from the top, so my wire to be coming over the top. Okay, so this is going to be able to slide up and down, but we want to work just about a third of the way down. So the bottom of my wire is there, the top's just up here. So about a third of the way down, because this part is going to become your ear wire. So our wire's coming over the top of our base wire, and I'm just going to chase it around the side. So I'm just going to ask it nicely to come around the side, and I'm going to bring it over the top of my wire again. So I've just framed the side of that bead there. Okay, so giving that a wrap around and then 2 wraps. So you're going over the top of it and then 2 wraps over this wire. Okay, my wire's still on the top. That's where we want it to stay. We don't want our wire to come from underneath. It always has to be on the top of our base wire. So we're bringing this down the side of the other side of the bead, so we're framing our bead, and then we want to look at these 2 wraps that we had originally, and we want to come across over the top of those, then come underneath, and then 2 wraps. So 1, 2, like so. So now I've got, it's come over here and I've got 2 wraps and my wire's on the top again. So I'm just going to try and bring that up just so that you can see that a bit better. There we go. So I've got my 2 original wraps, and then I came over with this wire here, and then I've got 2 wraps on this wire, and my wire's coming out over the top at this side. So then I'm going to turn it around and do the same at this side, and this time, every time I come across the sides now, I want to come underneath. So make sure you keep, this is the front, and every time you bring a wire up the side, it's going to come underneath the other wires. So it's going to come underneath there and sit nicely next to it, and then it's going to go over the top above those wraps, and then bring it under, and then from there you're going to do 2 wraps. So 1 and 2. Okay, and then you're going to come around to this side and come underneath the side, underneath that original side wrap, You can support it with your thumb or your finger over the top, underneath, and then 2 wraps. 1, 2. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that down just because it's a little bit more comfier for me to wrap with my elbows on the table. So underneath that side, so my 3rd wrap, this is my 3rd time around, so it's coming underneath all those other wraps, across, and 1, 2. Okay, making sure everything's pushed nice and neatly together, and now we've got 3 wraps on that side there. So wire's coming over at this side, and again underneath those previous wraps around the side, across, and 1, 2. And we're going to continue that until we've got 5 times around. I mean, you could go further if you wanted to. If you wanted to make maybe a bigger focal piece for a necklace, that would be nice to have kind of a central piece that was slightly bigger, maybe graduate them. But keep working around until, for this earrings, I think 5 times around is enough. So I have got 4 here, so 1 small around, so across, and get those 2 wraps in, and across, making sure I've come underneath all those other wraps, and 1, 2 full wraps. So that's my little herringbone section almost done. What I like to do is just come in with my flat nose or chain nose pliers and just very gently apply a little bit of pressure just along that main wire, and it just kind of splays them out a little bit better. So we're not squashing it, it's just very gently, just making sure everything's sat nicely along the wire. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off this tail. We don't need that. We've finished on 2 wraps, so we don't need to add any more wraps. That will be plenty strong enough. Okay, so now we've got this here. So we're going to make the loop at the bottom. So we're going to make the loop at the bottom on this shorter piece. So we're going to come in with our chain nose pliers, leaving a very tiny gap in between the bottom of our wrapping and our pliers. I know these are flat nose pliers, but they're so fine, I always call them chain nose. And I'm just going to make a kink out to the side so it's flat with everything else. Then I'm going to come in with my snips and snip this off to about 1 centimetre remaining. So there's about 1 centimetre remaining on there. And then I can come in just with my round nose pliers, and I usually come down about 0.5 centimetre on my round nose pliers, and then just wind that back in. So keeping everything nice and flat, just start winding that back in towards the end, and you'll find that you get a very nice neat loop like so. So we've got that nice neat loop at the bottom there, and that will be, you'll be able to open and close that and be able to add your charm at the very end on this. So now we can move on to making the actual ear wire itself. So we add one of our 6mm beads. That's going to give us a little bit of a distance between our work and the actual ear wire. Then I'm going to turn it on its side so you can see exactly which way I'm going. So this is the side profile of this. So I'm going to go in with my chain nose pliers right above that bead. I've only left about 1 millimetre or so there, and I'm going to kink this forward, so it wants to be about 45 degrees. So sideways and 45 degrees like so. So just making sure you get a nice bend on that. This is for one reason to stop our bead coming off, and also it's going to start the creation of our loop coming around. So if you've got a pen, you would pop your pen in here and then start bending around. I'm going to go in with my largest baling plier, so I'm popping my pliers right in. The other side of my pliers is touching this gemstone, and I'm going to push this around. So by making that touch the gemstone, when you make the opposite one, because normally when we make earring wires, we make them in pairs, but this one we can't do that. So make sure you're following the same rules. This has to be touching the gemstone so that you know you're going to get the same size every time. So I've brought that all the way down. So I've got my nice loop for my ear wire. Now I'm going to turn this around so I can see where I'm going to cut it on this side. Now what I tend to do on this type of wire for this earring, I'll look at the very top of my 8mm gemstone, so this part here. Okay, So looking at that, I will cut around about level with the top of the gemstone there. So I will take my snips and snip that there. Then I'll come in with my chain nose or flat nose pliers, and when I'm looking at the bottom of this gemstone, that's where I'll make my little kink outwards. Now this, the very end, what I would do is use maybe a file or an emery board, I think I've got one here, and just file the ends a little bit more than I'm doing there, but just to make sure that there's nothing kind of sharp on there. And actually that's not much sharp on there anyway, it wouldn't take much to finish that off. Just make sure you've got a nice comfortable finish for anybody wearing it. So that's the major part of our earring made, so we just need to make that little charm now. So for that we're going to need a head pin, which I've misplaced, so we'll just find one out of here. There we go. So I've got a head pin, and then all we're going to do is pop our gemstone onto our head pin, and then taking our either chain nose or flat nose pliers, and I usually go about 3mm away from the gemstone, which I know that these particular pliers are about 3mm, so I can push that away. So I've made that angle, I've pushed it away. Then I can take my pliers out, and coming back in with my round nose pliers, I can grasp, and I'm grasping this side, I'm grasping the side right on that angle, but I'm actually, my pliers are on this piece of wire. So then I can hold that nice and steady, bring this all the way around. So I'm about 1/2 centimetre or so down my pliers. So I've brought it all the way around until it's parallel with the other wire. Then I can reposition my pliers, like so. So all I've done is turn my pliers around. Then I can bring this underneath. So that's created a really nice beautiful loop on there. And then all I need to do is take my chain nose pliers or flat nose pliers and hold that loop quite firmly to retain that shape, and then I can start wrapping the tail of this wire around the stem that's going through the gemstone. So nice and firmly, and wrapping around, and you generally get about 3 wraps with 3mm depending on the thickness of the wire that you're wrapping with. And snip off, make sure that any of that end is nicely tucked in. So now we've got our little charm made. All we need to do is go back to the earring that we made. This loop that we made at the bottom, because it's a simple loop, we can open that. So we can open that up, so we open it by twisting rather than pulling out. We open it by twisting, like opening a door. Then I can pop my little charm on and then close that little loop, and our earring is complete and ready to wear. So let's bring that up so you can see. So this is our earring, all ready to wear. Obviously you can use different coloured wires, different gemstones, but it's a really beautiful, quite an elegant design. I hope you've enjoyed that demonstration. I hope you will have a look at some of my other ones, because I've been very busy during this lockdown making lots and lots of demonstrations. And please subscribe if you like what you see and you won't miss out on any of my other ones. I also do seed beading as well as wire work, so we do a bit of everything. We might even bring some cords into things as we go along. And pop me a like if you've enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Take care.